And then they couldn't put dwarfs because this is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarfs want to work. And
she's cheering at the sight of her own name. This is what theaters look like across the world, and it just keeps getting worse. The memes.
Ever seen a movie flop so hard that even the lead actress had to sit in an empty theater just to process it? Well, that's exactly what happened to Rachel Zegler, the once rising Hollywood star who didn't just headline Disney's Snow White. She found herself at the center of one of the most brutal box office disasters in recent history. What was supposed to be a modernized take on a beloved fairy tale quickly turned into a career-crippling embarrassment, proving that no amount of Disney magic could save this catastrophe. The moment those second weekend numbers dropped, it became painfully clear. This wasn't just another underperforming Disney remake. It was a full-blown, industry-shaking disaster. From controversial interviews to co-star feuds and even political controversy, Rachel Zegler didn't just burn bridges. She torched the entire kingdom. After spending months dragging Snow White through one controversy after another, she is now facing the cold, hard reality of what happens when Hollywood turns its back on you. So what exactly went wrong? Was it the movie itself, the disastrous marketing, or did Rachel's own words and actions bury this film before it even had a chance? And most importantly, is this the end of Rachel Zegler's career? Buckle up, because this story is wild. You know a movie has flopped beyond repair when the lead actress walks into a screening of her own film, and the room is so empty you can hear the popcorn kernels crying. That's exactly what happened when Rachel Zegler attended a showing of Snow White, only to find that the audience was basically non-existent. Instead of a packed theater celebrating a Disney blockbuster, the setting looked more like a private screening with a few friends for moral support. Rachel filmed herself buying tickets and later posted clips of the theater, but instead of generating excitement, the entire situation just screamed, "Please, someone pretend this isn't happening." Of course, some fans quickly tried to defend her, saying she had rented out the whole theater for a private experience. But let's be real. Everybody had been posting videos of empty theaters across the country. Even people who were forced to go watch reported that their screenings were virtually deserted. And because the internet never misses an opportunity for meme gold, Rachel's attempt to celebrate the movie's release quickly backfired. The clips she posted gave off the exact opposite of what she intended. Instead of, "Look at how fun this is," it became, "Hey guys, come watch me tank my career in 4K. The moment the internet got hold of the footage, it was over. People started comparing it to other infamous box office flops, calling it a Hollywood disaster in real time. At this point, even Rachel herself probably knew what was happening. You could almost feel the awkwardness in the air. But this was just the beginning, because when the box office numbers dropped, things got so much worse. Let's talk about numbers, because trust me, they are painful. Disney sank $370 million into producing and marketing Snow White. That's nearly $400 million spent on a rebranded, modernized version of a classic fairy tale that was supposed to be a massive hit. Instead, it barely managed a $43 million opening weekend, which, for a Disney live-action remake, is beyond catastrophic. To put that into perspective, even Dumbo, a film that had nowhere near the same level of marketing or controversy, managed to do better than Snow White. And that's saying something, considering Dumbo was literally about an elephant that flew away from theaters. And if you thought the first weekend numbers were bad, the second weekend was even more brutal. Ticket sales plummeted 66%, raking in just $14.2 million and dropping Snow White to second place, behind A Hard-Working Man, a low-budget action film that had over 1,000 fewer theaters and zero Disney-level hype. Even The Chosen, Last Supper, a limited-run film with half the number of theaters, almost outperformed Snow White. And that's when it became painfully obvious. This movie wasn't just underperforming, it was a financial black hole. By March 30th, 2025, the worldwide total stood at $142.8 million. And experts predict that instead of breaking even, Snow White will lose over $100 million. At this point, the internet had all the ammo it needed. If you thought Snow White tanking at the box office was bad, just wait until you see how the internet completely annihilated it. When word spread that theaters were practically empty, online forums, Twitter, and YouTube became a battleground of memes, roasts, and brutal takedowns. First, let's talk about IMDb. This movie didn't just receive bad reviews. It crashed to a jaw-dropping 1.5 out of 10 at one point. That's not just bad. That's, should we delete this movie from history? Bad. Even infamously terrible films like The Room or Cats still managed to keep a score above 2 or 3 stars. But this was next level. Disney's past remakes, even when controversial, still managed to pull in audiences. The Lion King, 2019, despite mixed reviews, crossed 1 billion worldwide. Even Dumbo, which wasn't exactly a fan favorite, performed better than Snow White, a fairy tale remake backed by one of the most powerful studios in Hollywood. But this time, something was different. It wasn't just that the movie failed, it was that nobody even wanted to give it a chance. And a huge reason for that? Rachel Zegler herself. Before the movie's release, Rachel made the bold statement, "At every premiere, people will wait in line to see my movies." Oh, they waited in line, all right, to buy tickets for anything but Snow White. The moment that clip resurfaced, it was over. Social media roasted her confidence, pointing out how entire theaters were nothing but empty seats. Memes flooded Twitter and Reddit. Seat maps were posted showing more blue than the ocean, and fan reactions turned into a collective dunk session on just how delusional that statement had been. Even worse, the meme-ification of Snow White turned it into a complete joke. People weren't just talking about the bad reviews, they were actively making fun of it. A quick search on YouTube or TikTok, and you'll see countless videos clowning on the disastrous PR, the bad press, and the sheer lack of interest from audiences. At this point, it wasn't just a box office flop, it was a full-blown internet phenomenon. And that's the worst thing that can happen to a movie. Because once a film turns into a running joke, it's no longer just failing, it's a cultural punchline. And yet, somehow, Rachel Zegler managed to make things even worse. One of the biggest reasons Snow White failed wasn't just the movie itself, it was the PR disaster leading up to it. And at the center of it all, Rachel Zegler. From the moment she was cast, Rachel seemed determined to alienate audiences instead of winning them over. She publicly trashed the 1937 original, calling it weird, and dragging the prince for being a stalker. The original is extremely dated, she said. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. That alone ticked off Disney diehards who grew up loving the original fairy tale. But Rachel didn't stop there. She doubled down. She made it clear that this version of Snow White was meant to be a modern morality tale, not just a remake, but a complete overhaul of the story. But here's the thing, nobody asked for that. Audiences didn't want a new and improved Snow White. They wanted a faithful retelling of the classic they loved. Instead, what they got was Rachel repeatedly mocking the original film, telling interviewers that the prince was creepy, the story needed fixing, and that this new version was going to be better than the original. And if that wasn't enough, Rachel took things a step further by actively telling certain groups not to watch the movie. If you don't agree with what we're doing, I don't need your business. Thanks. That one single sentence alienated half the audience before the film even hit theaters. Imagine actively telling people not to watch your movie. The result? They listened. But it wasn't just what Rachel said. It was also the drama she created behind the scenes. Let's talk about the Gal Gadot situation. Throughout the Snow White press tour, there were countless rumors of tension between Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot. Fans noticed how Rachel completely skipped Gal's name in her cast appreciation post, ignored her during interviews, and even made shady comments about her being a pageant queen. It got so bad that Disney had to beef up Gal Gadot's security after she started receiving hate and death threats online. The drama reached such ridiculous levels that it seemed like Disney's PR team was working overtime just trying to contain the damage. They even hired a social media consultant to manage Rachel's posts. But at that point, it was like trying to babysit a tornado. Then came the apology post. Rachel suddenly changed her tone, calling Snow White a life-changing and emotional experience. But by then, the damage was already done. Audiences weren't buying it. And worse, Hollywood wasn't buying it either. The question now is, can Rachel Zegler recover from this? Because right now, Hollywood is ghosting her. She was rumored to be cast as a voice in Toy Story 5. Gone. Set to lead a new Pirates of the Caribbean reboot. Scrapped. Had a horror trilogy deal lined up? Not anymore. At this point, Rachel isn't just dealing with a box office failure. She's facing a full-blown Hollywood blacklisting. Studios don't want to work with actors who bring more controversy than ticket sales. And in Rachel's case, she managed to do both. And let's not forget, this wasn't just a bad movie. It was one of the biggest Disney disasters in history. Right now, Rachel's only hope is to lay low, avoid more controversy, and hope Hollywood gives her a second chance. But with the way things are going, it looks like the industry has already moved on. So what do you think? Is this the end of Rachel Zegler's career? Or can she somehow pull off a Hollywood comeback? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and don't forget to subscribe for more Hollywood breakdowns. Because remember, not every fairy tale has a happy ending, especially if you're Rachel Zegler. Peace.